So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the market housing needs assessment. This is some of the data that we've collected on the housing issues going on here in Marquette County. This was a report that QPAD published back in 2020, and it's looking at the needs of the county regarding housing. So this all started with the Regional Prosperity Initiative, which was a initiative under Governor Snyder, which funded regions to tackle economic development issues and involved a lot of regional partners from transportation to economic development and planning, higher education, and various other groups. As Sarah kind of pointed out in the introduction, that uh, housing is a fundamental issue for economic development and workforce. So a lot of our conversations kept going back to this. So we decided to work together to fund a series of housing needs assessments so we could better understand the issues. The intention was to develop housing needs assessments for each of the 6 counties in the central region. We ended up only actually doing Marquette County and Dickinson County and did get a start in some of the other counties and held focus groups, but um, those were the ones that were published, and we're still working on the others. We worked through the SEDS committee and the Community Development Collaborative Council to help publish this report. QBAG completed it in both of the studies in late 2020 for Marquette and Dickinson County. It analyzed demographic, socioeconomic, and existing housing market conditions and trends. And it ended with summarizing the findings with a sensitivity to the conditions of each market study area. And it's intended to be a snapshot of the conditions as they were in 2020. Some of the data lags behind, as you know, with the census and all of that. It usually comes out a few years later than we would like. So we tried to use a wide variety of data to capture the most current information that we could. So for the Marquette County Housing Needs Assessment, we looked at 2 specific market areas within Marquette County. We looked at the West End, which was Negaunee and Ishpeming, and also Marquette with the city of Marquette and Marquette Township. These are the 2 urbanized areas and the 2 hot markets, if you will. So considering our methodology, we began with data collection. And as I said, we analyzed a number of different sources. Particularly, we looked at the target market analyses that were done in 2016 by Land Use USA. And also MISHDA's market scans for the Upper Peninsula. And so we considered those along with data from the Census Bureau, Zillow, Rent.com, Realtor.com, various other things like the United Way, Alice, and local surveys, actually. The city of Negaunee conducted a senior citizen survey on housing, and we incorporated some of that into our analysis. After we gathered the data, we put it together in a presentation, and we called together focus groups from each of these communities. So within each of the market areas, we brought together planners, economic developers, landlords, financial institutions, and various other stakeholders to learn about the data and to comment on it, and then to give their insights into some of the challenges and opportunities that were going on locally that we couldn't capture through the data. They provided a number of very good insights that we would not have known about, particularly on the employer side. So the results of this study were in the findings. And as you can see from this Bridge article from, I'd say probably about 6 months ago, that the housing market is absolutely crazy. Marquette County was ranked the highest in percent of change in prices out of all of Michigan's 83 counties. We found that home prices were rising twice as fast as incomes for the years 2000 through 2017, where the incomes have only risen 36%, while home sale prices have risen 68%. Housing affordability challenges continue, particularly for renters. We found that over half of Marquette County renters spend 50% of their monthly incomes on rent. Median rental prices for all housing types is over $1,000 per month, and rental stock is low and in high demand. So as you can see here from this graphic, those making in the lower income brackets are significantly more likely to pay 30% or more on rent, which is the standard for unaffordability if you're paying over that. And then looking at this graphic down here at the bottom, Marquette are the dark blue bars, Issuing is the dark gray bars, and Negaunee is the lighter gray bars. Another finding that we had here was 1/3 of all households are headed by somebody of retirement age. At the largest age group that we see in the county is 45 to 64, and a large proportion of them are aging into retirement currently. So I think within the next 5 years or so, these folks are going to be aging up into the next cohort, which is in the senior years. Seniors are often looking to downsize, but don't have many options within their communities. And more seniors are living alone. So you have a lot of seniors and empty nesters who have too much home, too large of a home for the size of their household. Maybe they had a family there before, and folks have moved out. But we're also finding that more seniors are living alone in their homes. So let's see, high demand for a mixture of housing formats. We have a lot of single family homes in Marquette County, but not a whole lot of other things. There are apartments with duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, but not a whole lot of those missing middle type features like townhomes and condos and accessory dwelling units and whatnot. A large proportion of the homes are older, built pre-World War II and in need of significant upgrade. That's 40% of the homes in the city of Marquette are built previous to World War II, and 72% of the homes in Issuing and Negaunee are. They sell for significantly less and are more likely to require significant maintenance. And housing tenure and occupancy rates in the city of Marquette, there are two types, renters and owners. The average home ownership rate in Marquette is 70%, while rentals are 30%. There's approximately an 8% vacancy, and countywide, that rate of seasonal homes, camps, and seasonal rentals is about 17%. There's less in the city much less in the city than there is on the um, out in the more rural areas. Um, so considering the impacts of this, thinking about the living wage and family incomes, uh, so housing prices are going up, but so is the cost of everything else, from education to healthcare to childcare to everything. Um, so at the same time, this is going up. Family incomes are not going up at a pace that can keep up. Um, Here down in this bottom graph, I have the Alice survival budget that's asset limited, income constrained, but employed. And that tells you what the survival budget is for somebody making a certain wage with a certain household type. And it shows you the minimum of what they would have to earn to be able to make that work. So you can see it's pretty tough when you consider housing, this top line here, along with everything else that needs to be paid for. Further impacts, talent attraction and workforce development. More than half of the households in the city and township of Marquette are non-families due to northern Michigan. Um, Students look for rentals so they can stay close to campus. But if as unaffordability grows, they're going to have a more challenging time being able to make that work. That's kind of challenging for the enrollment for a university if students cannot find housing. Young professionals and families cannot find affordably priced housing to suit their needs. So that's a problem for attracting new residents to the region. Just an anecdote, QPAD was looking for a new employee, and at least on a couple of occasions, we had people turn down jobs because they were not able to easily find housing in the area. Until we did find somebody who was very determined and made their situation work, but it was not easy for them. So just an anecdote there, but certainly something I think a lot of employers are experiencing. From our focus groups, we heard a number of things. From the West End, we heard new construction is too expensive. Potential homeowners cannot afford it, and developers cannot make a profit. That has to do with the cost of materials and the shortage in skilled labor. Many homes have undergone ad hoc efforts to repair their housing, and a lot of them are in a state of disrepair. There's a lack of buildable land in Nagani and Ishpeming with road access and utilities due to mining activities of the past. Educational programs that could teach people about housing and how to care for aging homes and how to build new homes to become homeowners. And aging homeowners who want to sell but have no comparable options in their community. From the city and township, Marquette is largely built out, limited buildable land within the city. Changes in zoning codes are needed for multiple family developments and ADUs. And since this comment was made, I think the city has made a lot of progress, both with the ad hoc housing council's recommendations for zoning reform and some projects that have happened. Chronic skilled labor shortage, limited opportunities, and high demand keeps sales prices high. Improved transit capability helps affordability, more transit-oriented development to better serve the workforce. More missing middle housing needed between single-family homes and apartments, lack of low-income housing. High construction costs make it hard to build without extra financing to bridge the gap, and condos and modular homes seem to have negative connotation when they don't have to. So the next steps, we published this a year ago, but the next step is to hopefully conduct these needs assessments for the remaining counties. They're intended to be a starting point for conversation. we present the data and it gets a conversation started among local leaders and how their populations within their cities are being affected. And then they can carry this forward by developing local housing action plans, as the city of Marquette did with the ad hoc housing committee and their final report on housing. And within that, they can make recommendations for actions and policy changes. And continuing to work with partners on local housing discussions. We're really pleased to be part of the Marquette County Intergovernmental Housing Coalition here, and working to develop more strategies for how we can lighten the situation. Thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take them now or later.
Thank you, Ryan. I think that's really helpful to give us a sense of the scale of the problem that we're dealing with. And so really appreciate you sharing that data and making it available to everyone. I know that often in these conversations and when talking with different partners about solutions, the first question is what data is available to show us specifically what our needs are, what type of housing we need to be building. So this gives us a really good start on that. One question that we received in the chat is whether housing costs include the cost of utilities like heat, electricity, water, and phone.
I believe for the census, they do not. They do not cover that.
Okay, so those costs of living are even higher than what we might see on paper here.
Yes, I would say so, yes.
There's a couple questions about whether and why or why not Gwynn and K.I. Sawyer were included in the study.
Yeah, in hindsight, we definitely would have included more study areas within that. I don't think it was intentional that we left them out, but those were just the hottest housing markets at the moment. I think at the time, Nagani and Ishpeming were just starting to heat up, and there were some significant issues that were growing in Marquette at the time. But that's a whole nother consideration there. They have quite a bit different issues than either of those have.
Yes, thank you. Had another question about the Dickinson County assessment and whether that will be provided in an email. We can make sure there's a link on our website to that study as well. But Ryan, do you have a quicker way for people to get to that?
Yeah, it's right here in my presentation. So if you were to load up the slides to LSCP, you would have those. Otherwise, you could go to the QPAD website, cuppad.org, and it's on our plans page.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a comment here about the Intergovernmental Housing Task Force and where we can find more information about the progress. We'll give you a sneak preview to our discussion tomorrow and also some of the discussion this afternoon. We have a panel from the members of that Intergovernmental Housing Task Force. Right now, it is the 3 cities in Marquette County itself, the Land Bank Authority, and we are going to be having a discussion tomorrow after the summit has concluded to talk in general terms about what's next for that group. We've been exploring some different ideas that I think Anne will discuss in her presentation, which is coming up next. But we do want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to learn more about the Intergovernmental Task Force. And we also want to talk with everyone about how we expand that group and build more participation into that. So that discussion is happening tomorrow afternoon. I'm sorry, not afternoon, 11:30 is our roundtable. See if there's other questions here. One about some of the difficulties in finding contractors, even to do repairs. That's a huge issue. They're all booked out 1 or 2 years. I think a lot of us have run into that. And that certainly makes our development landscape a lot more complicated. There's also a question here on the status of the bill regarding short-term rentals. And again, tomorrow morning, we'll be having a discussion on statewide housing policy. I think we're going to touch on that, but we probably won't get into it in a lot of detail. Just real quickly, I can tell you what I know. There are several bills out there right now. Several of them are essentially housekeeping bills that will address how short-term rentals are defined as transient lodging and whether they're subject to the lodging assessment that some communities have in place. And then there's the bigger, more controversial bills that would essentially remove local control over regulating short-term rentals. And that has passed the House and it hasn't moved any farther than that. And the sense that I get is that it's not going anywhere anytime fast. But we all know politics, and I don't want to vouch for the accuracy of that long term. So that's kind of a non-answer, but it's really not, really hasn't been moving since it was passed by the House. There's a question about the results of the survey done in Negaunee. Ryan, do you have access to those survey results?
I can look for them and find them. Yes, I can get a hold of them.
Okay, thank you. I guess it's an anonymous question, so I guess I would ask the participant to contact Ryan to get those survey results. One other question, is this housing info being shared with the legislature, or are we working with them? Because obviously part of the issue is low income equals cost of living, and being that Michigan needs to raise local minimum wages. I can answer the first part of that question. We are when I say we, I'm speaking on behalf of the community as a whole and a lot of housing advocates and economic developers across the state. We have been really vocal about housing needs. I think that the legislature is hearing that, and there are various proposals in response to that message. We'll be talking about that in more detail tomorrow morning at the housing policy webinar. But yes, it's certainly an issue that has been elevated in terms of the state conversation around that. Okay. All right, I don't see any other questions right now. I hate to deflect the few that we got to previous or to upcoming webinars, but we really do hope to get into more detail on some of those questions over the next day or so. So hope that you can tune into those webinars coming up.